Hey, what's going on, fam? So this is going to be another quick video, or not quick, I don't know, it might be long, but this is going to be another video about the ADOS movement and understanding white supremacy. It's basically the ADOS movement and understanding white supremacy part 2. The reason why I'm making this video is because I want to reiterate and drive some more points home about the ADOS movement and the failure to understand white supremacy that comes out of that movement from both the figureheads and their followers. And that's why I have the screenshot I have up on the screen, which is a screenshot of a Bernie Sanders supporter slash Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore supporter who showed up on my channel, a brother named Rock Lee. And as you can see from those tweets that are up on the screen, or I keep saying tweets, YouTube comments that are up on the screen, you see that the brother is claiming that he's going to support Bernie Sanders and that he's going to vote for Bernie Sanders, which is totally off code. It's totally political suicide, especially from H.R. 40 deflecting reparations aren't feasible Bernie Sanders. No black agenda Bernie Sanders. It's political suicide. Yet and still, this brother does not have the adequate education to understand that on his own. For him to even think that it's appropriate to show up on a channel like this, announcing your support for Bernie Sanders, that tells me a lot. And what I wanted to reiterate from my last video is that he's not the only one. I told y'all about the older lady named Joy Bunton who showed up on my channel, who I deleted her comment because it was literally a 10-paragraph comment. But she showed up on my channel defending Bernie Sanders. Other people have showed up on my channel defending and supporting Bernie Sanders. And that's why I say things like there's a lack of understanding coming out of that movement. Because that's why I went on and on, or not went on and on, but that's why I talked about the slippery slope. Because the things that Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore are teaching, especially the excuse that she's giving for the ballot initiatives, if we are going to use that logic, you cannot then tell me that you cannot use that same exact logic about voting for policies that are going to benefit you and affect you, whether they have a black agenda or not. And you cannot tell me that you are not going to take that same logic and then turn around and use it to say, hey, I'm not voting for Bernie Sanders. I'm not voting for Elizabeth Warren. I'm just voting for student loan forgiveness because that affects me and benefits me. I'm just voting for Medicare for all because I need health insurance. You can't tell me that you can't use that same logic to then go and support candidates who don't have a black agenda. And let me say this, because I know that is the Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore follower desperate deflection about, oh, it's the ballot initiatives, it's not the candidate, it's the ballot initiatives. First of all, do you even know that most people will not have any ballot initiatives on their ballot? Do you know that usually if there are 5 or 6 states that are going to have a ballot initiative, that's a lot during any presidential cycle? I have voted in the past. It's been a while. It's been 2012 since I voted, so it's been 7 years. But I have voted in the past. And I remember when I was voting, there was never any ballot initiatives on my ballots. So this lie that all of a sudden there are ballot initiatives in every city and every state, that is disingenuous. You might have 4 or 5 people. I mean, not 4 or 5 people, but 4 or 5 states that are going to have a ballot initiative. And no, you don't have ballot initiatives for every city, local, municipality. Most of the times, if there's a ballot initiative, it's a statewide ballot initiative. 90% of the time, if there's a ballot initiative, if there's even one on your ballot, it's a statewide ballot initiative. Number two, most laws do not come via ballot initiatives. So if you really want to get any policy into place, you need candidates that pass policy. So this lie that all of a sudden you're going to show up to the polls and there's going to be 6 ballot initiatives for you to vote for, and therefore you can ignore the candidates, that's BS. Most likely there won't be any ballot initiatives on your ballot for 90% of us. And if you are teaching people to support policy that will affect you regardless of whether or not it has a black agenda, that can also lead you to supporting candidates. And I know the deflection is, oh, we're not going to support the candidates. We're only going to support the policy. But you don't get policy without candidates, because candidates become politicians and pass policy. That's why they have to promote and run on their policy. That's why if you go to every candidate's website, they have policy and agenda for everything but black people. Because that is how you get policy. You don't get policy 90% of the time by voting on no damn ballot initiative. So it doesn't make sense to keep running around trying to hide behind ballot initiatives and ignore the fact that the main way you get policy is through candidates. That's why they announce and promote the policies that they have, so that you will vote for them. So when you vote for candidates, you're already voting for policy. That's why Bernie's telling you about Medicare for all, because you are already voting for policy by voting for him. So you cannot tell me that you can't use Yvette Carnell's ballot logic when you show up to the polls and there's not any damn ballot initiatives on your damn ballot, to then say, well, I'm not supporting Bernie, I'm supporting his policies, because that's how the hell you get policy 90% of the time, not by voting on some damn ballot initiative. So that's a deflection, and this is why I get so frustrated with the ADOS people and the figureheads and their followers, because there is a severe lack of understanding white supremacy. And that's why Neely Fuller says, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand will only serve to confuse you. That's why Yvette's talking about a primary, but then she's not. That's why she's talking about the Democrats, but then she's not. That's why she's talking about ballot initiatives that aren't going to show up on 90% of ADOS ballots, of the people who are ADOS in this country. 90% of them that go to vote will not have any ballot initiative on their ballot. So what are they going to do? As you can see from Rock Lee, a lot of them are going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Let me explain another thing to y'all. The same logic that Yvette Carnell is using to support these ballot initiatives and these random things that have nothing to do with a black agenda is the same logic that I got told when I was on my black agenda train since 2016, 2015. Again, go look at the first video on my channel. What was it about? What was the very first video on my channel about? 2 years before I ever heard of or mentioned the acronym ADOS. The reason why I'm bringing this up, just on a quick side note, is Yvette Carnell has been recently using to defend herself about this down ballot stuff, and also when she jumped out the window on Tariq Nasheed. One thing she keeps mentioning is about how she's been calling out Obama for 10 years. Now, normally I wouldn't bring up somebody's past, because I know that people grow, and I know it's not fair to bring up somebody's past, especially if they've changed since then. But in Yvette Carnell's case, because she's bringing up her own past to defend herself, I'm going to bring it up. Because Yvette Carnell was supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016, while I was on my black agenda train back then. Yvette Carnell was throwing people who are anti-white supremacy, anti-racism, saying anti-racism is trash in an attempt to defend Bernie Sanders' colorless, raceless policies. She was saying anti-racism is trash, and the main reason why she was saying saying it was in order to cape for Bernie Sanders. The reason why I'm bringing that up and bringing up the past is not only to point out who Yvette Carnell was caping for, since she keeps bringing up how she's been calling out Obama for 10 years. But that doesn't matter, Yvette, if you've been calling out Obama for 10 years, but 4 years ago, you were supporting reparations aren't feasible Bernie when I was calling out Bernie for that exact reason. And there's video evidence on my channel. I was calling out Bernie Sanders for being a fraud and saying reparations aren't feasible, while you were supporting him and throwing anti-racist people under the bus. When your whole movement exists, the ADOS wealth gap exists because of white supremacy. But you were saying anti-white supremacy and anti-racism is trash. Now, the reason why that matters is because I've been on the Black Agenda train since 2016. This is not my first go around. So I've been through this before, unlike some people. And when I went through this the first time, and when Hillary shills and Democratic shills were trying to get me to support Hillary and trying to tell me all the good things that Obama did and how we need to continue Obama's legacy, when I would say Obama never did anything for black people, they would say, well, he don't have to do anything for black people. He did policies that still benefit you. He did the Affordable Care Act. That still affected me. This is a Democratic shield talking. That still affected me. That still benefited me. So you still have to vote for policies that benefit you, even if they're not specifically for black people. Because you can't let Trump win. You can't support Trump. Does that sound even a little bit familiar, especially when certain people are jumping out the window on people because they think they support Trump? That don't sound familiar to y'all. If you're objective, that don't sound familiar to you. You gotta support the policy. You don't have to support the person. This is exactly what they said to me. Oh, we know Hillary did the mass incarceration, but you don't have to like Hillary. She's got certain policies that are gonna benefit you, while Trump's policies are gonna do nothing but hurt you. That don't sound a little bit familiar to y'all? And again, there's some passion in my voice, but I get frustrated, especially with people who come from the ADOS side of things, because they show such a lack of understanding of white supremacy. Let me explain something to y'all. The first time that I realized that there was a difference between ADOS and FBA. So even though I knew when this movement started, I knew Tariq. Now, not so much I knew anything about Antonio Moore, but I knew that Yvette Carnell and Tariq Nasheed had a history where they kind of didn't like each other. I knew that Yvette Carnell had said something along the lines of Hidden Colors was homophobic or something like that, and Tariq caught wind of that, and he kind of was saying she was funny style for that. You know how he talks. And then, of course, Yvette came out disrespecting Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and that was also a big problem for Tariq. So they didn't like each other. And I knew that. But even though they didn't like each other, and I knew that there was kind of a difference between Yvette and Tone and Tariq Nasheed, I didn't realize that there was a big difference between FBA and ADOS until I started calling out Marianne Williamson. That is the main reason why I made 3 videos about Marianne Williamson. Not because I kept having new information to expose, but because when I started calling out Marianne Williamson, that's when I started to notice a difference. I started to notice the people who were more so following Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore before the ADOS movement picked up. These were the main people who were giving me pushback and having a big problem with me calling out Marianne Williamson. I noticed that I got more dislikes on my Marianne Williamson videos than any other video. And that's when I began to realize, and that's why I made multiple videos, because a lot of the same people who were all in love with my ADOS versus Pan-Africanism videos, all of a sudden were thumbing down and hating on me and blocking me and all kind of stuff because I was calling out Marion Williamson. And that's when I realized that there was a severe white mommy reflex in a lot of the people from the ADOS side. Because I noticed the main people that were agreeing with me in calling out Marion Williamson were people who had been following Tariq before the ADOS movement blew up and got big. And that's when I started to realize that a lot of the people who were more so FBAs, even though at that time we were using the term interchangeably, so a lot of people were calling themselves both. But the people who were more so FBAs or came from the Tariq Nasheed side of things, these were people who had a history of studying Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Neely Fuller, Claude Anderson, Amos Wilson, Khalid Muhammad, John Henrik Clark, Dr. Ben Yakinen. These are people who have been studying consciousness and pro-blackness for years. Meanwhile, people like Yvette and Tone and their followers were fresh off supporting Bernie Sanders and Democrats and throwing anti-racism under the bus in order to support these people. And that's another reason why I'm bringing up Yvette Carnell's past. Is one, again, she opened the door, but B, also to show that these are people who were not coming off studying our great scholars. They were not coming off studying white supremacy. They were coming off studying Democrat babble, blue wall babble. And I'm talking about blue wall, not police blue wall, but Democrat blue wall. It's evidenced by Yvette throwing anti-racism, which is the whole reason why ADOS exists, is racism. So ADOS, the ADOS movement is an anti-racism, anti-white supremacy movement. But she was throwing those people under the bus just a few years ago when people like me were attacking Bernie Sanders for saying things like reparations aren't feasible. And that's when I understood that these people did not have the sufficient background of understanding white supremacy. So when I call out a Marion Williamson, their white savior, white mommy reflexes kick in and they have a bad reaction. That's why I made 3 videos. It's because the more I got pushback from ADOS Negroes about Marion Williamson, the more determined I came to break them of that white mommy syndrome. Which is why I titled one of my videos, "And the Breaking of the White Savior Syndrome." Excuse me, fam, for the cough. But anyway, and damn, that kind of got me. But anyway, that's the first time that I realized that there was a problem. Speaking of Marion Williamson, some of the main people who were ADOS who were fighting me about Marion Williamson and thumbing down my video and blocking me on Twitter for calling out Marion Williamson and debating them about their white mommy support of Marion Williamson and her disrespect, which Tone has now also come out claiming that he's called her out. And I may make another video questioning some of the double talk about him calling out Marion Williamson. But that's not this video. So for now, I'm going to give Tone credit for what he claims he did at the conference, and that was call out Marion Williamson. So don't tell me that I was wrong for calling out Marion Williamson, because Tone did it too. We too late for you to come back and tell me I was wrong, because your leader, Antonio Moore, said the same damn thing I did. That is disrespectful. Especially after she's been told the correct amount on more than one occasion. But a lot of the same people who were defending Marion Williamson when I was calling her out, before Tone ever spoke up, are the same people who were supporting, guess who? Bernie Sanders. Go look at my Marion Williamson videos. Go read some of the comments. If I haven't deleted them, you'll still see some of them that were the same people who were defending Marion Williamson, are the same people who were then turning around and telling me that we should be supporting Bernie also. Just like a lot of the people who are supporting Bernie on my channel now are the same people who defend down ballot. There's a link there. There's a consistent link of not understanding white supremacy. That's why you support Bernie Sanders. That's why you support a Marianne Williamson. That's why you support down ballot. There's a consistent theme here. And yes, right now I'm more so talking about their followers, but their followers speak to the kind of education that's coming out of their movement. Their followers speak to the kind of education that is coming out of their movement. And that's why I use the screen cap that I'm using for this video. And it's of that brother Rock Lee sitting up on my channel telling people that he's going to support Bernie. And he's also the same type of person who has showed up on my channel trying to kind of defend this Democrat down ballot stuff. And a lot of the other people, now let me say this, not every person who has defended Democrat down ballot has also turned around and told me that they're supporting Bernie Sanders. But every person who has told me that they're supporting Bernie Sanders has said that has also defended Democrat down ballot. So let me be clear. Every person who has defended Democrat down ballot has not necessarily told me that they are supporting Bernie Sanders. But every person who has told me that they are supporting Bernie Sanders, so that was certain, has also defended the down ballot strategy. And they're not even following it because they're voting top of the ballot, bottom of the ballot, and all the way through. And again, this is why I say that logic is a slippery slope. Because A, I've heard it before from Democrat shills in 2016. And B, it's simple common sense logic because most of us don't even vote for ballots. That's not how you get government done. Yvette is always talking about understanding politics and understanding the government. If all we did was vote for ballot initiatives, we wouldn't even have a Congress and a president. So most policy is gotten through politicians. And if you are already in the mindset of supporting policy that does not have a black agenda, you are already going to go and then support politicians who do not have a black agenda. Because unlike Yvette Carnell's weak talking points about how we don't like somebody's personality and we don't like selling me and all of this stuff, we are worried about these candidates' policies, not about their personality, not about their hairstyle, not about the dress they wore or the shoes they wore or the jeans they wore. Not about none of this bullshit event that you keep trying to insinuate that we vote for, but about the policy that the candidate has, because that is the way you get policy 90% of the time. If all we did was vote on ballot initiatives, we wouldn't have a Congress. So all of this hyper focus on ballot initiatives is a way to hide from the reality that your logic is a slippery slope and it is an abandonment of the black agenda. It's a way to hide. Oh, I said you don't have to vote for the candidate, vote for the policy, vote for the ballot. That's another way of telling me to vote for the candidate and just ignore the candidate and their lack of a black agenda and just vote for their policy that might benefit you, which is exactly what people told me why I should support Hillary. Because Obama, he helped me because his policies helped me even though they weren't black. And Hillary's going to continue Obama's policies even though they're not black agenda policies. This is the same thing that I got told. And now this is what Yvette is saying. And that's why I have such a problem. Because I've stayed on the train. I've stayed on the path. Yvette has now deviated into this Democrat shield babble. I don't know what else to call it. But anyway, fam, that's one of the many reasons why I say that Yvette and Tone do not understand white supremacy, because of the things they say and the education that they bring and the kind of people that come out of their movement and show up on my channel talking about how they're going to vote for Bernie Sanders after being an Yvette and Tone supporter. That's the kind of messages that Yvette and Tone followers are coming away with, is Bernie Sanders support. But anyway, fam, I don't want to make this video too long. It's already longer than I wanted it to be. So that's just me driving some points home. Like, share, subscribe. Peace.